that at that time, the law was quite favorable to our position. Not going to tell you that it would have been a lock win. There's no such thing as a lock win in court. And I would think Mr. Diaz, since I gather you're an attorney based upon your last comment, knows there's no such thing as a lock win. But the law was pretty good for us at that time. It is not, subsequently, the law has changed and it is not as good for us. And I'll be candid about that. But at that time, the law was pretty good for us and we had a bona fide chance of winning in court. To the extent that your city attorney's office filed a motion to dismiss that lawsuit. And we survived the motion to dismiss. Judge Moore did not dismiss the lawsuit whatsoever. The lawsuit kept on going. With that in mind, I believe it was the time that Mr. Held had to go in for his hip operation. And I got a call from Mr. Dubbin at the time. And Mr. Dubbin said to me, listen, things have heated up between Club Madonna and the city. The best thing for you to do, if you want this really to be resolved by the city commission, if you want to make peace, why don't you voluntarily dismiss the lawsuit? That will show the city good faith in your actions, show the city that you don't mean war with the city and that you really want to work with the city. And on our own, we voluntarily dismissed that lawsuit. Subsequent to us dismissing that lawsuit, I found myself twice sitting in chairs along this row here, each time with the matter being brought up, each time not being allowed to speak whatsoever. I can't tell you exactly the details, but I know that there was Commissioner Garcia that brought it up one time, and nobody would second even discussing the matter. But the bottom line of it is I found myself twice in this chambers hoping to speak on the issues, the merits of why we are entitled under the law to have alcohol and nudity, and never was given that opportunity to do so. Based upon that, Mr. Cruz, one of your past commissioners, made a comment when we were sitting here and the essence of that comment was that the reason why we're not getting any redress, that there's a pink elephant in this room referring to the $30,000 issue dealing with Ms. Gross. Based upon that, and I can't tell you, and I'll raise my hand to God if that's what it requires, I cannot tell you how the Ethics Commission got wind of this other than somebody must have sent it to them. But the next thing we know is we got a call from the Ethics Commission, and they asked us to come down and file a complaint. And you all are, I'm sure, aware that an ethics report was done. And the Ethics Commission came back with a 2-2 vote that, in fact, your actions or the actions of some of your predecessors were not unethical. 2 people deciding yes, 2 people deciding no, and a 5th person wasn't there to make a decision. Based upon that, based upon the fact that we had no access to this commission whatsoever, based upon the fact that we have learned since the ethics reports have been made a public record that the commission had said that they were not going to discuss this matter with us and we were going to get no place until the $30,000 was paid, we filed another federal lawsuit. And because of that federal lawsuit, a resolution was had. And what is that resolution? I'm finally here speaking to all you nice people. Whether you vote my way or not, I at least have finally gotten the opportunity to open this mouth. Anyhow, that's the history from how we see it. There is no doubt that other people can see it differently. No 2 people see everything the same way. But I think it's important for you to know that Mr. Griffith is not this evil ogre that wants to attack the city commission, that Mr. Griffith is not looking for a way to ruin the Gross's life or anything like that. This is how we saw the events unfolding from our eyes, from our seats, and from our perspective. I bring this up because in order to move ahead, one has to understand the past. I wanted you to understand how we view the past, but now I would like to move ahead if I can. At the beginning, I said to you all that I was going to address a couple of issues, and I'd like to do that now. Why should the City Commission vote for this ordinance? Well, there's reasons why you shouldn't. You could say giving anything to adult entertainment can be used against me later on in some political campaign. Well, you heard the studies that have just been done. You heard the polling that's been done. This is a non-issue for your electorate. Either way you vote, you're not going to garner votes by voting for it, and you're not going to lose votes for voting against it. It's not a political issue. But what is it? It's an economic issue. I don't live here on the beach. but I can know the times that we're living in, and we are living in tough economic times right now. Every community that has tourism is fighting for that tourist dollar. Miami Beach was one time, and maybe you still are, but you were the tourist capital of the world. And I do know with South Beach and other things that you have your convention center, you still want to maintain at least being up there with the league leaders in tourism. You are a tourist capital, but what do you not have? You are one of the few places in all of Dade County, Miami-Dade County, and Broward County that don't have establishments that have alcohol and nudity. Well, what does that cause you to do? It causes you to lose dollars going off the beach. I don't have the statistics, I don't have the numbers, but I have reality. When people come into this city, tourist dollars come into the city, and tourists are here, they can easily take that causeway over and go to the other establishments in Miami-Dade County. And they may drop $100, $200, $300, not just at that strip club, but in the surrounding businesses around it, the restaurants around it, the other locales around it. They may drop that money. You are losing that money from Miami Beach. And that is an economic interest that you all have. I don't know the amount of tourists that you have that come in here, but I do know you must value adult entertainment to some degree because you have your convention center rather, that has Exotica every year, trying to bring in the adult entertainment dollar. So you must understand that there is value to it, that adult entertainment dollar, and you are losing it. It is going to other parts of Dade County. We know, based upon what we have looked into, that if alcohol and nudity is allowed, and Club Madonna has it, 11 new jobs will be created at Club Madonna. 11 residents of Miami Beach who do not have employment right now will have employment. And that employment will range from $400 to $2,250 a week. That is money that will be put into the community. That will be 11 less people, 11 less families that are in harm's way based upon this economy. We estimate that $200,000 in tax revenue will be generated from this. And we estimate that $25,000 will go to the homeless and domestic violence programs. That is an interest that you all have. Since there is no political downside to it, since there is no, which I will get to other reasons to say no to this, economically, it is in your interest to do so. The staff report, and I'm sure Mr. Held will go into it, points out that this ordinance would allow an establishment that has nudity with alcohol to basically have less parameters assigned to it than those with partial nudity and alcohol. And he is 100% correct when he tells you that. However, what I hope you all realize is that you do not have one establishment in Miami Beach that has partial nudity with alcohol. Not one establishment exists. So to compare that to an establishment that doesn't exist because the parameters of those establishments requires it not to be able to exist is ridiculous. What you need to compare it to is what's going on in your neighboring communities, what's going on in your competition communities, what's going on in the communities that want to take your dollar away from you and put it into their economic engine. I went through an adult magazine just recently in preparation for this, and just off the top of my head, this is what I found. There's an establishment called the Beach House Cabaret in Sunny Isles, offers total nudity with alcohol. There's the Booby Trap in Doral, total nudity with alcohol. There's PT's Gentlemen's Club in Hialeah, total nudity with alcohol. Tootsie's Cabaret in Miami-Dade, total nudity and alcohol. The Mint Lounge in Miami Gardens, total nudity and alcohol. BT's Gentlemen Club in South Miami, total nudity and alcohol. I have no problems giving you my notes later. Stir Crazies in Pinecrest, total nudity and alcohol. Solid Gold in North Miami, total nudity and alcohol. The Gold Rush in Miami, total nudity and alcohol. Booby Trap in Homestead, total nudity and alcohol. And those are the ones in Miami-Dade County. I can go on with the list of the ones in Broward County, and what I did was only took one per each city so that you could see how many different cities and how many different counties, both Miami-Dade County and Broward, allow total nudity and alcohol. Now, that is an important factor for another reason. The only legitimate reason in a court of law, and we're not in a court of law, but in a court of law to prevent nudity with alcohol would be the assumption that adult entertainment or nudity with alcohol causes what they say are secondary effects, adverse secondary effects. Now, I pose this to you. My list went up to 20. Would 20 different municipalities and counties allow this to continue if, in fact, they were causing adverse secondary effects? Would they not have curtailed it? In fact, some of these municipalities have allowed nudity and alcohol to blossom in the 5 years that we have been discussing this here or I haven't been discussing it, but others have, in the city of Miami Beach. The bottom line of it is that nudity with alcohol does not cause adverse secondary effects. I presented to you, and I bet you not one of you have read it, a list of, I think it was 47 studies that I presented on disc. Bottom line of it is 10 of those studies go directly to different parts of the country where they have analyzed the adverse secondary effects of establishments that have alcohol and nudity and have come to the conclusion that they do not. There's a Charlotte-Mecklenburg study. There are 4 studies from different parts of Florida. There's studies from all over the country, and they come to the conclusion property values do not go down and crime does not go down. There aren't adverse secondary effects. So again, when the question is asked, why should you vote for this or why not, there is no why not. And the why should is you're keeping dollars on the beach. Now, as to the school, you know very well that we have sent a letter to the school. We are asking this from you. Don't make up your minds today. Pass it on first reading. As far as the wording of the statute, I'll get to that in a little while, but pass it on first reading and allow us to reach out to the school. We do not know if the school has any concerns. In fact, we have not received any complaints about our establishment from the school whatsoever. But if they do have complaints, I promise you we will address them. And we will go a step further. We want to meet with the PTA. Since you will be doing us a favor and increasing our revenue, we want to aid that school. And we are going to reach out to that school and to that PTA and see what we can do to help them financially in some manner. Not in blank check, I'm not going to promise that, but I am going to promise some financial assistance to the PTA. And I have a child that is one in college and also one in 4th grade, but that's another story. I have a child that is in 4th grade, and I know that our PTA is hurting for dollars. And I know that any PTA is not going to sell its soul for the dollar, but if we have been good neighbors, as I promise you we have, they are going to welcome what we can do for them, and we want the opportunity to sit down with them and to present it to them and see whether they will come in here next month, whenever the second reading will be, and say, you know what, we are in favor of Club Madonna expanding its economic base because it's going to help us, and there has never been any harm. Now, as to the school, we have never been a threat to the school. But if you read the ordinance closely, we are saying we will not be open selling alcohol during the time the school is in session. There will be a couple of hours window, 2-3 hours window, prior to school being opened and after school closes, so that the alcohol coming from our establishment will not affect any child. Can't promise it for all the other establishments that are selling alcohol, but it will not be Club Madonna alcohol. I told you at the beginning that we have the perception that some of you think that we're trying to create a monopoly. And again, nothing can be further from the truth. There is a monopoly, but we did not create it. I don't know how many of you know it, but your zoning laws have created a monopoly for Club Madonna. There are virtually no places on Miami Beach in which adult entertainment can open up. It's basically a zone out, or very close to that. That is something for another day for somebody else, not for me. It may be unconstitutional, but that's not why I'm here. And I'm just telling you, the monopoly situation is created because how thin Miami Beach is and how long it is, how many schools you have, how many residential areas, and things like that. That is why there's a virtual monopoly. We have no problem sitting down with your city attorneys and your city staff and changing the language of the ordinance so that it isn't a monopoly if that is your fear. We welcome the opportunity to sit down with them. The bottom line of this is give us an opportunity to work with the school, work with your city attorneys, pass us on this first reading with no promise that it'll be passed on the second reading,